Welcome back. My name is Patrick Parrish, and today we're going to be covering the midpoint section, or sometimes referred to as position 3. Basically, we're going to cut it into 3 different categories. 1 is going to be posture, 2 is going to be staying on plane, and that means not only with the club, the shaft, and the club face, but also with the hands, the elbows, and the shoulders. And thirdly, we're going to talk about loading the club properly and the body as well. So let's get started with the front view. Some of the things that we want to look at in the front view are the loading of the body and the club, and also the posture. And by loading of the body and the club, we're talking about the loading of the right leg, inside the right foot, the right knee, the right hip, and also the loading of the club. So when I come to midpoint, I want to see that club fairly loaded. Concerning posture, we want to look at not only am I staying in my posture from my pelvic tilt, but also what Mac O'Grady called full field view. And that is, we want to have our face stay on the ball. And if I have a tendency like Jack Nicklaus, for example, if he tilts this way, the club's probably going to go out that way, which is what Jack did. And then also, if I have a tendency to take my eyes this way, it's going to make me bring it inside. So those are 2 particular things that we're going to be looking at. The loading of the golf club in the body, and also the posture, maintaining it not only with the body, but also with the face. So let's get started with a front view video. Now I have my recording, and so I'm going to go ahead and take it back to midpoint, or P3. Note that my left arm is parallel with the ground, and I'm pretty much 90 degrees. So one of the lines I want to draw here is across my left arm, and then another one that goes through the shaft. So you can see I'm 72 degrees there. That's another nice feature of this app. It will actually tell you the degrees. Also, I'm going to change the color now, and I'm going to use the color green. So this is going to show the torso. Note that I've gotten behind the ball. In other words, my left shoulder has moved away from the target, and I've maintained a certain posture. Thirdly, I'm going to draw another line right outside my right hip there, and note that I did not have that perfectly executed, so now I can actually take that line and move it over, which is another fine feature of the app itself. Now that I have that, that's the model that I'm trying to do. We also talked about the face staying in posture and not getting in peripheral vision, so I can go a square mode, and I'm going to put a square right around my face, making sure that my eyes have stayed in full field view of the golf ball. So those are the 3 things that I pay particular attention to. The loading of the inside of the right hip. Note my right hip has not moved laterally, and my right knee is loaded, and my right foot is loaded with the weight on the inside of the right foot. And also the club has pretty much fully loaded itself. All I have to do from here is turn to the top of my backswing. These are some of the key points that you should be looking for when you're using your Liveview sports camera, covering the midpoint. So now let's take a look at the downline view. Here we have our Liveview Pro camera set up from the downline view, and we're going to get a little deeper on those 3 categories. The posture, for example, we're going to be paying particular attention to the pelvic tilt with the spine angle and maintaining that, and also our full field view regarding the face. In other words, we don't want to go this way or that way, but we're going to make sure that the face stays right on top of the ball. And then we're going to also be looking at the loading of the right hip and the right knee and the inside the right foot while we're staying in that posture. And then thirdly, we're going to make sure that we're staying on plane. And that means not only with the club, the shaft, the club face, but also particularly with our hands, with our elbows, and our shoulders. So that also relates to posture, by the way. So let's go ahead and get started on covering the downline view and a much more in-depth approach. Now we have our downline view, so let's dig in deeply. So I'm going to draw a red line through my basic plane, which we've seen before, which goes through the shaft and approximately through the belly button. And then I'm going to slide my bar over to just about midpoint where my left arm is parallel to the ground. Note that my hands are in front of my right bicep. The shaft is just below my right shoulder. And I'm going to use the color blue to represent the shift of the plane. Note that it has shifted slightly from where my basic plane or my red line was. And some things we want to pay particular attention to. Not only is the shaft on plane, the club face is on plane, and so are the elbows. So in other words, the right elbow's not flared out too far, the wrists are on plane, and also the shoulders have stayed on a certain plane as well. And they are, I'm going to change it to yellow, and they are going to be just about 2.5 to 3 feet in front of the ball. Also, I'm going to draw a line here in front of the head and on the tailbone and on the spine angle. And I can come back to my original posture in the setup and make sure that my head stayed on that vertical red line, my tailbone stayed on the line, and I kept my spine angle or my pelvic tilt. Thus, my shaft has gone beautifully up the red line, shifted up to the blue line, and you'll see again, my hands are just inside my right pec, and the shaft is bisected through the right bicep. So those are some particular features that you want to look at when looking from the downline view. Also note that the right knee has stayed flexed. So as I slide my slide bar across here, you'll see that my right knee has remained relatively flexed, and so I can draw a line there if you wish. So I can take another color here, and I can use kind of a turquoise color, and it will also give me the angle of my right knee and the flex of it. And also note that you can see how the club is now going to be loading as well. As I slide this across, I'm hinging right up that plane that we talked about earlier. So pay particular attention to those three things in your golf swing. The loading of your right leg and the loading of your shoulders in relationship to your hips. My hips have only rotated to about 35 degrees, while my shoulders are nearly 90 degrees. So that's the torque of the loading between the upper body and the lower body. So we've broken this down into everything staying on plane, not only the club, but also the hands, the wrist, the elbows, and the shoulders. We've talked about staying in posture, and that means not only the pelvic tilt, but also the face. And then we've also talked about the loading of the golf club and the loading of the right leg, and the relationship of the load between the upper body and the lower body. Thanks for tuning in today with P3 or the Midpoint. Go out and work with your live view camera on these things, and I'm sure your game will improve. Next, we'll be covering the top position or P4. Look forward to seeing you then.